Now I request Mr. Vikas Malhotra, Country Manager, LastPass, to offer his presentation. Vikas is an astute and result-oriented business leader with over 2 decades of IT industry experience in helping organizations achieve substantial business outcomes by providing niche technology solutions. As an experienced professional in the information and communication technology industry, Vikas has managed and led partnerships with customers across different verticals and diverse businesses. Vikas is credited with the success at Wipro, Dell, Symantec, Oracle, Lockman, and now with LastPass in India. Vikas has driven strategic business growth in the marketplace for the organizations and has successfully developed and leveraged relationships towards achievement of targets and high levels of customer satisfaction. In his current role, he is responsible for building and leading the LastPass business in India and SAARC.
Every login is a doorway into your organization. You need to secure those access points, even though employees just want to walk through and get to work. Some users think they're making life easier with simple passwords. Others reuse the same credentials. Some are forgetful or reckless when it comes to handling their password. All of these habits just make it easier for hackers to sneak in and steal your data, while the IT department combats threats and improves security measures to ensure compliance. Businesses need to take control and lock up these logins without losing their productivity for IT or employees. LastPass is a vault for your passwords, keeping them safe while providing employees with easy access, password sharing, and ultimately, more productivity. Instead of dozens of keys into your business, LastPass offers a universal key, a single secure password that provides access for employees only. And IT is in control with a comprehensive admin console where they can enable security policies, monitor passwords, manage onboarding, and track adoption. Reduce password-related risks at your company and keep hackers out of your digital environment. Secure your business with LastPass.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vikas Malhotra, and I am responsible for the LastPass business in India and SAARC. I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking on the topic of how to mitigate fraud in the digital world. Over the last 2 years, organizations have really grappled to find the right means to enable remote working, irrespective of the size of the organization, be it across culture, people, technologies, and processes. But what we have seen over the last 2 years is that remote working is now a reality. Remote work isn't a trend anymore, but rather a new way for businesses to operate. There's no longer a defined perimeter to operate. And IT teams today are coping with multiple devices, networks, and ways to enable employees to access professional applications. According to Forbes, employees are feeling more productive. They are increasingly in favor of a work from home engagement at some capacity. And at the same time, businesses are also benefiting from a lower fixed cost in space, technology, etc. But then there's always a price to be paid, and these opportunities certainly come at a risk. Let's look at some of the data points. The annual Verizon Data Breach Report analyzes security incidents to identify trends in data breaches worldwide. In the 2021 report, which was released around May or June last year, Verizon analyzed close to 80,000 incidents across 88 countries. And these are some of the startling numbers that have emerged. What they found was that 85% of the breaches involved a human element, which encompasses any attack that involves a social action such as phishing or stolen credentials. But out of those 85%, 61% of the breaches involve compromised credentials. Privilege misuse contributed to 70% of these incidents and data mishandling to 20%. And this is something very common across the board. And 96% of the data breaches that happened in APAC were financially motivated. So that means the hackers hacked into the systems. Maybe it was a brute force or compromised credentials, but the objective was primarily financial gains. So where's the underlying problem? So let's understand this when it comes to user credentials. What exactly is the underlying and the fundamental problem? So let's deep dive into the password problem. Every year, LastPass publishes a report named Psychology of Passwords. It's a very interesting report, and I must say that I must encourage all of you to have this report downloaded from lastpass.com. The report certainly provides a lot of insights into the user behaviors and the employer behavior. So let's look at some of the data points which have emerged from this report, wherein LastPass had actually surveyed thousands of individuals and corporations across the world. So what did individuals say? What do people say when it comes to awareness, right? 79% of the people believe that if a password is compromised, it's a concern. But still, 51% of the people don't do anything about it. They just rely on their memory to track passwords. At the same time, 92% of the respondents actually claimed that they know that using the same password or the variation around the same password is a risk. But only 65% of them always or mostly still use the password or a variation, right? So there's a huge gap. And moving forward, what we see is another interesting data point between employee and the employer. 47% employees have not changed their password habits over the span of time. They've really not changed. They've really not evolved. And 47% is a huge number. That means 47 out of 100 have really not changed their passwords. And from an employer perspective, 39% made sure employees logged on to the company network via secure networks. So while on one side, the employees are not doing enough to strengthen their credential habits, on the other side, only 39% have been successful in getting them logging through secure networks. So that means largely their employee population has been logging in through unsecured networks. 46% of the respondents mentioned that they did not strengthen their passwords while working remotely. And only 35% of employers made employees update their passwords more regularly, right? And then the last piece of information, 44% shared sensitive information and passwords for professional accounts working remotely. So it was very easily that they just shared the sensitive information, and yet 35% of the employers could actually enhance the authentication methods. So what we are seeing is clearly that there is a gap exists, even though the best of the technologies are brought in. Let's look at some of the breaches that have happened around the world. And I'm sure when we analyze these companies, we are convinced enough that these are organizations which are far ahead in terms of technology adoption. When it comes to technology curve, they're really far ahead, and still they have been breached. So the primary reason is the gap, is a gap that's there, which I'm going to be talking in my subsequent slides. And I would like to explain this gap using this using this picture. What we can see in this cartoon is that this really illustrates that on one side, on the left-hand side of the corner, what we see is that over the past few years, organizations have been investing millions of dollars in strengthening their defenses through processes, technologies, through software upgrades, threat intelligence, network firewalls, cybersecurity consultancy, and whatnot. And on the other side, the reality is more often that our organization, the cybersecurity, is not up to the behaviors and hygiene of people we employ, right? So on the other side, there's an individual Dave. And this Dave could be anybody, right? This Dave could be myself. This Dave could be any employee in the organization who unknowingly and unintentionally is bringing in a weak password behavior into the organization. And I really want all of us to think and reflect on our password hygiene, on our password behavior. How conveniently, whenever we are to change our passwords or whenever we have to sign up into a new application, we try to have a different password, but we have those passwords which are very much in our comfort zone. There is a high possibility that our Gmail password could be our banking password, and the same could be the password to the most critical application in our environment. And this is the behavior that we bring into our workspace as well. And let's not forget, as an individual, our digital footprint is growing, is really growing multifold. I'm sure every month on an average, we are downloading some 4 to 5 applications or signing up into some new accounts, whether it's an e-com account, whether it's an entertainment, whether it's an OTT platform or it's a music application, whatever it is, everything requires us to key in some credentials and sign up for the services. And with the growing number of businesses who are rendering their services through mobile app, this stickiness is just going to increase. So that means as an individual, our digital footprint is going to increase, and it becomes practically impossible for us to have different passwords and at the same time memorize all those passwords. So as individuals, what we do is we try our best to be in our comfort zone. And in doing so, we unknowingly bring in that behavior into the organization and put the organization at risk. Normally, what the CISOs in the businesses are doing, they feel that bringing in a SSO MFA is going to fix the problem. But what we don't realize is that there are many applications that cannot come under the ambit of SSO. It's just not practically possible to bring every application under the umbrella of SSO. And then at the same time, there is a possibility we might have third-party contractors working in our businesses, and they bring the equal risk, because for a hacker, they are just trying to find vulnerabilities, not with the topmost people who are highly secured. They are trying to find vulnerabilities anywhere in the infrastructure and then trying to make their way in. So that's the reason I say in the overall infrastructure, even after having spent so much of dollars, the issue is that the security infrastructure is fundamentally broken. So what is it that we are actually trying to convey? What is it that I'm actually trying to convey over here is it's about strengthening the password behavior at an individual level, and at the same time, organizations embracing an enterprise-wide password management solution first before actually jumping in and signing up for a single sign-on or a multi-factor authentication. And I'll support this also with some data points. So let's move forward and try to understand that what are some of the reasons why are companies across the world actually implementing LastPass? So the number one reason, we know that there's the regulations around the world, which are being brought in by the respective governments across, whether it's European Union, whether it's in Australia, Japan, or in US, the sensitivity towards data privacy and the laws towards the data privacy are getting really strengthened. And that is one of the reasons where we are seeing a lot of trust coming in the organizations to comply with these laws. As we speak, we know that there's a data protection bill in India, which has gone through multiple iterations in the draft phase and is likely to be tabled probably in Feb. I'm not sure what really happens with that, but the fact of the matter is that even in India, there's going to be an enforcement that's going to come in. It's just a matter of time, whether it happens now or later. So enforcement is certainly one part, because while we feel that everything may seem to be hunky-dory, it has to be viewed from the angle of compliance. It has to be viewed from the angle of risk, that how much of risk the organization is still open to, vulnerable to, And at the same time, what's the alignment to some of these, some to GDPR or to ISO 27001? So all these things really matter, wherein a password manager is being embraced by organizations as the fundamental layer in the security infrastructure. Secondly, password management has emerged clearly in internal security audits, or it could be external security audits. Trust me, wherever there have been audits, what's really coming up is how are CISOs, how are the security leaders in an organization actually securing the user credentials, the most fundamental piece, which as I mentioned, are broken. The threats are now focused on executives, right? We all know that the executives are not so technology ahead, and the hackers are doing this as a full-time job. An interesting point that I would like to mention over here is the average time a hacker resides in an IT infrastructure before making their next move is close to about 70 to 75 days. That's the average time. Yes, this time was longer, up to 120 days, 150 days. It has reduced, but still, imagine a hacker in the infrastructure and in your environment and actually trying to figure out the right way to create a breach or the next move that they would do. And at the same time, these hackers are not using manual permutations and combinations. They are using advanced algorithms to create passwords, to actually log in into your environment. The fourth point over here is there's a rise in the phishing attacks. We all see there are so many CISOs who are having these drills with their employees on a regular basis in order to strengthen the security posture, telling the employees what's the right way, how is it that they should be reacting to such mails which come their way, and how is it that they should be adding in extra caution when they are responding to such mails. The fifth point is moving away and focusing on security technology to people and processes. So that's a very big critical factor that we are seeing, where in the security landscape, organizations are actually embracing password management, and then certainly dedicated security awareness programs. So these are within the security landscape. These are some of the reasons why businesses are actually embracing LastPass. So with this, let's see what really LastPass is all about. So LastPass for Business, the top variant, provides an end-to-end comprehensive suite of access, authentication, and identity. So what we suggest is that, first of all, the first thing that a CISO should look at is strengthening their password management piece when it comes to the IT infrastructure, when it comes to the security strategy. Because if we are trying to fix the other components without actually doing anything about the credentials, or without probably overlooking that, I would say that this is something, this could be equated to something like having your main door locked, the rooms locked, but having the ventilators and the windows open for somebody for an intruder to get into the house and monitor the situation before making the next move. So password management is the first thing. And then on top of that, what we could look at is authentication using a MFA, which comes along, and at the same time, the single sign-on off thing. So the MFA is a biometric MFA. Before logging into any application or through any device, the users can authenticate themselves using MFA and then leverage the power of single sign-on. So in nutshell, this is what LastPass is all about. So I hope I could provide some bit of insights to what the problem area is and what potentially is the way that a solution has to be viewed when it comes to strengthening the security strategy in any organization. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions. Please ping me on LinkedIn. I'm available on LinkedIn. You could find me there. and happy to connect, happy to answer any more questions. Thank you so much.
Today's workplace is complex. More apps, networks, and devices are used by employees that frequently work beyond office walls. To keep employees productive while protecting the business from cyber threats, it's critical for IT to have visibility into and control over everything employees are accessing. LastPass combines password management, single sign-on, and multi-factor authentication into one solution. With a centralized view of user access and authentication across the organization, LastPass offers a unified solution to secure everyone and everything. A centralized adoption dashboard gives admins one place to oversee enrollment, utilization rate, and security, and prompts admins to take action to improve metrics. From improving password security to streamlining access to work apps to protecting business data with additional authentication factors, LastPass provides admins the tools they need to secure every access point and connect employees to their work.
Thank you, Mr. Vikas, for sharing the insights of LastPass, and I am sure the industry will get benefited from the technology of LastPass for safeguarding their data. Before we move on to the next session, please don't forget to tweet at #CDS2022. I repeat, #CDS2022. The more you tweet, you stand to win exciting prizes, and also please visit the exhibition area where various corporates are showcasing live demos. Now it is time for the fireside chat session. We have two eminent personalities from the industry with us. To take the discussion ahead, I request Dr. Deepak Kumar Sahu, Editor-in-Chief, VAR India, to take over. Over to Dr. Sahu.